Yeah, this first quilt, I started quilting in 79, and this first quilt, I decided to use up a lot of little patches that I'd been receiving from shops. I don't know if you remember, but back then you could become a member of all the different quilt shops, and they would send you every month a little packet of 4-inch squares of fabric. So I became a member of every shop I walked into, and I thought, I'm going to have to use up some of my spare fabric. Heavens above, if you could see my spare fabric now. But back then I thought, I need to use some spare fabric. So this is a study in colour. I disregarded totally what was on the fabric, and I just used dark, medium and light fabrics. I covered papers and hand stitched them together, and then I machine quilted the quilt. So it doesn't matter how ugly the fabric is in your cupboard, you can use it. You just look at it as a colour rather than what the print is on the fabric. Queensland quilters used to have a challenge every 2 years. Now they have it every year. The back of that quilt, Judy, is the challenge fabric. I don't know who was running the show back then, but they used to go out of their way to pick the ugliest fabric that had ever been produced. This is the second quilt I did. The first one I can't find the quilt, so I've had to jump. And so this quilt won the challenge that year. And I carried on from the technique I used the first challenge, which was, I didn't know a lot about quilting. I didn't know about patterns or anything, and I just thought, I'll just create something, which was wonderful back then because I wasn't inhibited in any way with what I could or couldn't do. So I decided to do what I call mosaic applique. So I wanted to replicate tiles, but I wanted to do it in fabric. Yes, and so what you do is you get an image and you do an outline of the image and then take it and have it enlarged to whatever size you want. And then you fill the image in with mosaic shapes. I went on to write a book about the technique, so I then decided I'd do some raw edge and some needle turn. This one in particular is a needle turn. And so if you're doing raw edge, you trace your images onto Vlisafix. If you're doing needle turn, you trace your little mosaic shapes onto freezer paper. So that was the second quilt I did in the technique. These two were raw edge in the same technique, but when I was approached by American Quilt Society to write a book, they said, we'd like, I said, how many quilts? At that stage, I think I'd made 2 quilts. They said, we want at least 10 quilts. And I thought, well, I won't be doing needle turn for all of them. So then I started doing some in raw edge, which it's much easier and quicker to get the image together. After I'd done those, I thought I might make one a little bit bigger. What's the next one? This quilt is needle turn applique. It won Best of Show. It went over to Paducah and won a prize. And it was featured on a very well-known English quilting magazine, and the heading said, "Who in their right mind?" And underneath it said, "Who in their right mind would hand applique this many pieces to a quilt?" Again, this was an image of cats given to me by another quilting friend, and all I did was trace out, I traced out the image of the cats, and then I took them to a architect's office, but now you can go to Officeworks, they do the same thing, and I had it blown up to the size I wanted. The background is one piece of fabric. The background becomes the grout. So you have one piece of fabric and then you just applique all the pieces onto the background fabric. So I got a little bit bored after that. I then decided, by then I was travelling and teaching, and they were looking for a new technique, so I thought I'll do Impressionist landscapes. And so I got my inspiration from the Impressionist artists of long ago, Monet being my favourite artist. And so for this technique, it's all raw edge. You prepare your fabrics first with Vlisifix, and then you remove the paper, which I didn't do. Trace out your images. For instance, the large one over there, I would trace out each element in the design, mark where it was light, medium and dark, trace that onto baking paper. Very important to use baking paper and not another sort of paper. And then you cut all your prepared little bits of fabric up onto the baking paper and press them into place. Then cut your shapes out. I went on to do quite a few quilts in this technique. A lot of them are now hanging in my, or I've sold some, and a lot are hanging in my son's house. So I didn't have that many to bring. These. This one, and this one. These are three more little ones in the same technique. This is a foolproof way of quilting, because if you put the colour down and you don't like it, you can just stick another piece over the top of it. So, you know, you don't have to live with a mistake, just whack another piece of fabric down. This is another Queensland challenge. This was the fabric that we were given. Just open up long there, that's fine, mirrored. And so I took the concept of the Impressionist landscapes and I created larger pieces of fabric. I got sick and tired of cutting up tiny little triangular shapes, and so I traced larger pieces of fabric. But it's the same concept. It's a traced image, and then I put that onto baking paper, and then I put all the fused fabrics down onto it. The Queensland Quilters offer a class by Joe. I don't know your surname, Joe. Stand up so they... Joe does a fantastic class in a similar technique now. And so that was the challenge. In fact, that also won the challenge that year. I went on to do a larger quilt in the same technique, and this is probably one of my favourite quilts. If you show the girls the back of it first, the back of the fabric is the fabric that I used in the jacket on the front. So you don't look at fabric for the print that's on there, look for the light, medium, dark that's within the fabrics that you choose. Next one, the white one. I decided I wanted to do some quilt as you go quilts. By then there were a lot of quilters getting bigger machines, and that was not somewhere where I wanted to go. But I have trouble putting my quilts under a small machine. So I decided I'd do quilt as you go. But what I decided to do was, instead of doing lots of squares and having sashing between each square, I would hide the sashing so that you didn't know that it was really a quilt as you go. This first section is done and quilted, and this section is done and quilted, and then there's a sashing, and the sashing on the front became a border, but on the back it's white, so you don't know that I've got sashing there. I've got sashing through here, but you can't see it. So I chose to put white sashing there and just quilted through the whole thing, so it doesn't look like I've had to block and sash each section of the quilt. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I know it's white. Can you hold it up a bit higher, girls? Maybe half a quilt. Yeah, so You can't see where all the sashing is because I disregard the sashing and just quilt through the whole thing. That way I got a nice flat square quilt. Otherwise I end up with little, those little dreaded pleats that you get in the back of your quilt when you're trying to push it through a large machine. This is also a quilt as you go, but it's done very differently. So the the middle section of this quilt, which is a diamond shape or a square on point, was quilted. So I had the front, the batting and the backing, and I quilted it, and then I squared it up. I then created 4 corners. They were all just individual little corners, so I quilted those and squared them up. I then did the borders, and I quilted them and squared them up, and then I sashed the whole thing together. Then I created the green leaves and the flowers, and I glued them over the top of all the sashings, and I, with a monofilament thread, went around and caught the whole thing down. The flowers are done with plain fabrics, and then they're very heavily embroidered to give them extra interest. And then I embroidered around the edge of every green leaf so that you couldn't see that I'd machine stitched it down. But that was achieved by doing a quilt as you go. I don't think I could have achieved that had I tried to just do the whole thing. So my great love, have I got a hanging sleeve on it yet? Yep. Is paper piecing. Oh, my happy place. I have nearly every imaginable shape now available in paper piecing. The book that I used to use when I started, the book I used was this one by Deirdre Anston. She's written a couple of books and she did all her quilts in Liberty prints. This is a wonderful book if you want to understand colour and how you can create an image with colour. That particular quilt is done in 2-inch and 1-inch squares. They're all over papers. It's hand stitched together and then it's machine quilted. Next quilt. We're going to move on. Roll now. Everybody has to make a grandmother's garden, and so I made all the flowers. Hexagons, I have them in every size, and so I made all the flowers and then I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. And you need to understand, I'm one of those quilters that I don't know where my quilt's going. I just start and then I figure it out as I'm going along. It's all hexagons, the borders are all hexagons, the greens are all hexagons. And so then I thought, well, I'll create something, but instead of just doing hexagons in rows, I would create a little bit more interest with the... And again, it depends on the colour you use. Like, they're all hexagons, but it doesn't read as just hexagon flowers. Paper piecing has become popular again. I don't think it's just me. I think it has. So this particular quilt, the hexagons in this are all fussy cut. I used Carthew and can't remember the other, but there were 2 designers, and I used all their fabrics and I fussy cut all the hexagons. Now you could have joined them by machine, but no, I wanted to cover mine with paper and then hand stitch them. So I did a centrepiece with plain fabrics that are heavily embroidered. Then I put the hexagons down. Can't you hold that up straight? I'm not getting the response I'm looking for here. And the border, if I can say to you as a quilter, Don't put all this work in the middle of your quilt and just think, I'll bung a border on, like my friend Gail says, oh, bung a border on it. You know, don't bung a border on it. Make sure that the border is also very important and interesting. You want the quilter to look at the front, the middle of the quilt, but you want them to look at the border. This border, all those flowers are in plain fabrics, they're needle turned, and then I've taken a printed fabric and put centres in them and I've embroidered them. And then that's machine quilt. Paper piecing has come a long way. Quilters have now decided they don't just want to make hexagons and just join them all together. What they want to do, another nice big one, girls, what they want to do is they want their paper piecing to become a feature. And so this is my first attempt at this new technique. And so I've got different types of shapes. I've got hexagons in the centre. And I don't know what's that shape called? Pentagon. They're pentagon shapes. And then out here in the border again, I thought it needs a border that will create interest. And it's heavily embroidered as well. One of the tutors that's very popular at the moment is Margaret Sampson George, and this is her book. And she runs classes for quilters that want to do paper piecing, but they want to go to that next step and make them a little more interesting. There's fantastic classes being run by Fifi's Fabricology on this technique. If you want to become a piecer, as I call it, I found this is the best book that I've found out there for English paper piecing, and it's by Florence Knapp. She talks about the best way to glue or stitch your fabric over your papers, the best way to sew your shapes together, the types of needles and threads that you need. So I found that a wonderful resource. Some people choose to glue their fabric down, some choose to sew their fabric over their papers. Both work. It's just a choice. Tulip Pink has some fantastic YouTube videos on how to do both techniques. I'm giving you a lot of information now and I'm asking questions afterwards, so I hope you're paying attention. I was just going to share with you some of the things that I use for my paper piecing, so if you're not a paper piecer, you can go and get a coffee. Your shapes. You can download your shapes for free on the internet. Any shape you want you can download, and then you print them off onto paper. The most suitable paper I've found is from Officeworks, and it's 160 GSM. So it's just a little more solid than this paper, and it's much easier to handle. You need to get yourself a hole punch. Again, you get that from Officeworks or quilting shops. And the reason that you punch a little hole in your papers is when it's time to release them, you can just put a little hook in there and flick them out. Otherwise, sometimes they can become a little hard to get out. The glue to use is Soline. Don't use Elmer's glue. Some people use Elmer's, but I don't. I find sometimes it won't release from the fabric as well as it should. Needles. I use Clover Gold Eye number 9 applique needles, or my best, the one I prefer to use is a tulip needle. Now it's more expensive. I use tulip number 10, make sure I'm not giving you a bum steer here. Tulip number 10 applique, but you must have big I written on the box. And the reason you have a big I is it's easier to thread. So if you've lost your glasses, it doesn't matter. The tulip are more expensive, but they last about 3 times as long as other needles do. As far as threads go, when you're joining your paper shapes together, a lot of quilters choose just to use a grey thread, a mid-grey thread. I don't. I choose the colour of the fabrics I'm stitching together. And some people say, time doing that. But the quilt is with you for a lifetime, so I figure if it's going to take you another 5 minutes to find the correct blue to stitch your shapes together, but that's just a personal choice of mine.
What weight thread do you use, Lorraine?
Beg your pardon?
What weight thread?
The weight thread. I do like bottom line thread, but I don't believe you can get that anymore. There is another thread. Wonderful thread. It's a much lighter weight thread, and the reason I like that and I don't like grey is when I turn my quilt over, when I'm judging quilts or whatever, if I turn over a paper piece quilt, I don't want to see the stitches. If you can see the stitches, then you haven't achieved what you should have achieved. So a fine thread and a matching thread, I find, is the way you should go. Is everyone still awake? Here's a tip. We have phones now, but back when I started quilting, I had to have a peephole to do what I do. And I've done some very large portraits. A peephole and a phone work about the same. Please stop and take a photograph or look through a peephole at your work as you go. If you've selected the wrong colour, or if you've selected something that's too light and from a distance you can't even see it, it becomes obvious. You don't want to wait until your quilt is finished and then say, oh darn, that brown there is wrong, because it's then too late to unpick it. So take photographs or invest in a peephole, which I think you can pick up for about $2 or $3 in at Bunnings. You know what a peephole is? Yeah, it's a thing in the door that you look through to see if he's good looking or not, and if you're going to open the door. That's about all I've got. Can you still hear me? That is all I've got to share with you today, unless you've got any questions. Does anyone have any questions on?
Will some of that info be on the Facebook site that you were talking about, the needles and the types of thread system?
What did Joe say? Oh, bugger off, Joe. Look, I could jot it down and give it to one of the bosses. So if that's all, thank you very much for your time.
Margaret, could you come up again, please? We are trialling, we're hoping that we've videoed this talk. You signed the waiver, didn't you sign the waiver? So we'll see whether it works. The first time we've tried it on this particular, and Ian, Michelle's husband, has kindly become our photographer for the day, so if it goes wrong, we blame him. And I'd like to, on behalf of Queensland Quilters, get over here, Lorraine. That one there, that one is for Margaret, and this one's for Lorraine. Thank you very much, ladies. And they're just buds, but they will come out, I'm assured. Oh, my bottom's calling me. Thank you very much. Oh, what? That was great, wasn't it? I'm sure both ladies, if you've got questions, they'll be quite happy to answer any questions, but don't rush them all at once.